Welcome back, girls and boys, to In the Eyes of Truth, the English edition. Today with us is a dear friend of mine who I've known longer than this than the special military operations been going on. uh, Paul Goncharoff. And don't let the name Pavel Goncharoff, when you rephrase that, fool you. He's a New Yorker. Scary thought, yes, I know. In Moscow. So he's Russian, but we Russified him further. But I think some of that New York still left in him.
Yeah, I
Uh,
hope so.
so, Paul, Pavel.
Your forefathers were the salt of the earth, but they understood that that earth did not need the salt of their tears. Be it the tyranny of heartless elites, kings and emperors drafting fathers and sons to their endless wars, persecution by the godless revolutionaries, or a dozen other reasons. They made the hard decision. They picked up their families and headed to new lands, to new opportunities and sometimes new dangers, crossing oceans and a wild frontier. They faced incredible challenges and traumas, and they succeeded. And now, generations later, it is you who finds himself in the same shoes at a similar crossroads as your forefathers. It is you who knows that the land you call home is no longer recognizable as home. That all your hard work, what was built over generations, is just another pandemic away from being seized. The freedoms your forefathers fought for are hanging on by a shoestring, with globalist billionaires and conglomerates coveting your land. As the powers that be may plan to draft your sons and your daughters for their foreign adventures. It doesn't matter if you're American, Canadian, or Australian. Your children's future is no longer bright. You're the new Afrikaners marked for expropriation. The militantly woke no longer have a place for your faith in God or your big families, and they're coming for your land and the water rights that have sustained your family farm, your way of life. What is to be done? And where do you turn? There is hope. There is a land, the last great Christian land that loves farmers, loves big families, and loves God. A place where land is bountiful and very affordable. The government's not intrusive, taxes are low, and your faith and big families are not only welcomed, but celebrated. That land is Russia. And exitstrategy.world is here to help you make this hopeful future a reality. We will assist you in organizing your move, opening new accounts, moving your hard-earned wealth across borders, procuring farmland and documents. A prosperous future belongs to those with the courage to show up for it. Exitstrategy.world. Exitstrategy.world, the new Mayflower of the 21st century.
Tell us a bit about yourself. Tell the guests that don't know you, who you are, what you do, and the special insight that you bring to life in general.
Well, no, yeah, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Manhattan. My
We won't hold
parents
that
though
against
are
you.
from my mother's from Yugoslavia. My father's from Russia. Uh, their parents, my grandparents, are all from Russia, and a very complicated story of immigration. But as it turns out, I'm born in New York City, a product of the public schools of NYC, and I was given a 6 month. For 6 months, I studied because of pressure from grandparents at the St. Sergius Institute for Russian Studies. That was what they call a gymnasia or a high school in New York. But being a local kid, I didn't really understand what wearing a uniform and very classic Russian style monarchist group, and I was quickly kicked out of there for what they called hooliganism.
Didn't
So
they do a full exorcism to get you out?
oh my god, any event, look, everything happens in life for the best. And here I am a few years later, almost 60 plus years later in Moscow.
You've been
Who
in
would have thought?
Moscow for a long time now. I'd say
Oh,
30
yeah. Oh,
years
yeah.
something.
In fact, half of my life already.
But hey, the blood
I
calls.
first, I first came here in 1976. It was still the Soviet Union, and I was with a group called Statesmanship 7. And a lot of firsts were with that group. Guys from Exxon Mobil were there, or Exxon at that time. Heinz Interests, Jerry Heinz, a whole bunch of people who developed further into the fabric of the post-Soviet Russian society. So, and I'm still here.
They're gone, but you're here. That's
Yeah,
good. And be here for another 30 years at least.
thank God.
Well, for the audience, to understand Paul's background, first of all, his mother, very interesting lady, had a documentary done on her, a documentary, a full-fledged documentary film. And they asked her at the very beginning of this documentary, it's the clip, when did you first self-realize, like as an adult, when did you first self-realize? And she said, when she ripped out a Croat soldier's throat with her teeth.
Oh, yeah, she was hungry. No, but it was actually a very serious situation. Uh, a young girl, well, she was a young girl, was getting raped. This was during the Second World War, and they were on the road. They were refugees, and what could she do? You know, so she did the only thing she could do, and that's bite hard, and happened to be his Adam's apple. So there you have it. That's dear mom.
That's gonna be scary growing up. Hey, let's go screw with Paul. No, no, man, his mother literally rip your throat out with her
Yeah.
teeth.
Yeah, a little risk of that in Manhattan. Too many good restaurants.
Yeah, I can imagine. So first of all, as far as I remember, you were telling me you used to work in South Africa.
Yes, I did.
So tell us a bit about that whole experience. And this is
Yeah,
not
well, that
modern South
was
Africa. This is way back.
this was still apartheid South Africa. Well, it was an interesting period of American history. America was just switching over to unleaded gas, unleaded fuel. And in order to do that and meet at the EPA standards of the time, needed catalytic converters.
Mhm.
That's platinum, palladium, rhodium. Well, there's only really two large sources of it, and that's the Republic of South Africa and the USSR. And I was contracted with the Soviets. It was Almaz Juveler Export, it was called. And once I had that contract, it was a long-term contract, I figured might as well play both sides. And I moved to South Africa, where I had good sourcing for metals from Rustenburg, Impala, and the like. So I had really all sources covered, even to the smaller producers in Canada,
Hmm.
Falconbridge, where I became a vice president of their precious metals trading. So I had all three aspects covered.
And for those that don't know, platinum. Platinum is one of the metals, isn't it? Yep.
Platinum, palladium, and
Yep.
rhodium were the three.
Platinum.
Yeah.
Platinum is the U.S. has no platinum. Let's just start with that. As a precious
It does,
metal,
but it's not significant.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. Okay, you're right. Minimal, marginal deposits can be found all over the world of most minerals, but they're not economically feasible.
Yeah.
U.S. is in that position. So whatever platinum the U.S. at that point had, it was using for the military, strictly for the military.
Yeah.
Everything else
It was
they were using.
prioritized by the GSA.
Yes, it was. It still is to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything else had a alloy called Inconel, which is an
Mhm.
alloy mix that has basic qualities of platinum, but it's not platinum. Still doesn't reach that level.
Mm.
That's my
It
metallurgy
does.
days.
It doesn't dance the dance. Yeah.
It gets kind of, it's not the tango. It's the I've been drinking too much. I've been drinking too much Boone's Farm wine tango.
There you go. Boone's Farm. Good Lord, they still make it.
I don't know, but man, they did when I was in college. It was
Yeah, yeah,
we had the Boone Farms run, and then we passed the bottle around,
yeah.
guzzling it down. Nasty crap, nasty.
I remember. I wish I didn't, but I do.
Well, that what was even worse is Wild Irish Rose.
Yeah, there was a whole Mad Dog 2020.
Oh, we
Mogan
went to Mad
David
Dog
2020.
too.
Yeah, this is an era all its own.
Oh yeah, the commercials, the Mad Dog commercials were classics.
Yeah.
1970s, 1980s.
Hmm. Yeah. It's
Uh,
probably because of that drove me to go to South Africa. They had very good wine there.
do they?
Oh yeah, fantastic. It's just it doesn't travel too well.
Hmm.
So some of their reds, their dry reds are phenomenal, but you got to drink them locally. They just
Ah,
they just don't travel.
I just never figured South Africa and wine as
Oh man,
in the
that's
same sentence.
the whole Cape region, fantastic.
Really? Hmm.
Yeah, Cape wines, Stellenbosch, so on and on.
Do we have any of those in Russia?
Yeah, yeah. But
Seriously?
then again, I have to underline they don't travel well.
Because
Some
outside
of
of
the
Russian
white,
wine,
the whites are good. Well, they're fully comparable.
hmm
Before Russian wines really hit the scene internationally, I mean, people were singing praises of the South African vintners.
hmm,
Mm.
interesting. Yeah, I need to go buy a couple bottles and try. Like I said, never put those two words together in one sentence.
Mhm.
Wine in South Africa. Um, so, as I recall, you were telling me as soon as you arrived in South Africa, they gifted you it was a revolver and automatic.
Well, I had both. I had a 9 millimeter Llama, they call it.
Hmm.
It's a Latin American sidearm. And I had what's essentially the equivalent of an Uzi, also 9 millimeter. So the Uzi went under the driver's seat when I was on the road, and the Llama was either in my briefcase or in my pocket.
Now, this was for bandits or guerrillas or all of the above.
All the above and more. You
There
can
was a
always say use it for hunting purposes, but I didn't do much hunting at all.
elephants. I can
And
just see you
and
running with a Uzi.
thankfully, I never had to use it in anger or under real threat.
Yeah. But you were traveling outside of South Africa, weren't you?
Yeah,
Uganda,
my
those areas.
territory was Mozambique, which was then under Samora Machel, the
Hmm.
People's Republic of Mozambique. And I used to drive there. I used to drive from Johannesburg up through the border in Mozambique. And at that time, it was a tetchy area. They had terrorist incursions and the like. So it's better to be prepared than not to be prepared.
Now, you were by yourself, or did you have a bodyguard?
No, I was by myself.
Oh,
You have a bodyguard, you attract attention.
true too. Very true. Very true. Yeah. Hedge your days. Though, how's Mozambique now? I think it's still more or less hasn't changed.
No, actually, they've really pulled themselves up. Um, a lot of the work that's been done in the port of Beira
Hmm.
and Lourenço Marques or Maputo, now they keep changing names. You know, and as we all know, Angola
Hmm.
also.
Well, Angola's
Uh,
got a long way.
they've pulled themselves up tremendously since the days of the war.
What interesting with Angola, as far as I remember, the communists won, turned out to be ultra capitalists, and the Christian army, which was fighting them, was wiped out by Wagner. I'm sorry, not Wagner, by Blackwater, or one of those
I don't know those.
American mercs.
That's after my time.
Yeah.
That's after my time.
So, so once you
No,
got done with them,
at that time, there was a dividing line. It was called the Caprivi Strip,
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the Republic of South African forces against the forces of Angola, which was additionally buttressed by Cuban troops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a mess. It's calmed down significantly. The same thing for Namibia. It used to be a hotbed. It's quieted down now, and they're getting down to business.
Well, thank God. I mean,
Well, they have
20,
been getting down to business for a while already.
20, 30 years of civil war is horrible. 1 year of civil war is horrible.
Yeah.
When you go multi-generational.
Yeah.
So how long
Well,
did you stay in South
then it
Africa?
becomes part of the. You don't want it to become part of your DNA.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially when they start doing the kitty soldier thing.
Well, we're going to see that because of all the dust ups that are happening around the world. It's within areas that like vendetta. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so if you kill a bunch of Israelis, they're going to pass that on generationally. Kill a bunch of Palestinians, it's a generational
Oh
thing.
yeah, yeah.
So for every 10 that are killed, you got 20 that are still growing.
Well, areas like that, I Dagestan is a prime example. Dagestan is home to, for the viewers that don't know that, the province of Dagestan is home to 300 ethnic groups, right? So, um, I remember back in the late 90s, an American reporter, and they're usually dumber than rocks. They have no idea what they're talking about, but they like to talk. And so he's talking to the elders of some village. And just to understand, every other village is a different ethnic group. So when the boys from one village get in a fight with the boys of another village or some girl, it becomes a national ethnic feud instantly because
Yeah,
that's how it
yeah.
is. So this American journalist was talking to the elders of some village. Said, "Well, why don't you want to break away from Russia? Like, what are you insane? The only reason we're not murdering each other is because we're part of Russia, and Russia is over us." And this guy is
Well,
looking at him like
I,
no concept, no
yeah, but
understanding.
you've hit upon a very key item. Is that well, most Americans I've bumped into and chatted with, they hear Russia and they think it's one amorphous mass.
Yeah.
It's like in America, only bigger, right? Less people, but bigger territorially.
Hmm.
Nothing could be further from the truth. There are so many different cultures, peoples, languages, predispositions, and the only commonality that they have, whether they like it or not, is the Russian aspect,
Yeah.
the Moscow, you know.
Well,
Oh, and again, I say whether one likes it or not, and it has, and what the one of the good products of the Soviet system was that it standardized language for the most part. And the more stresses you see of the past 20, 30 years of the post Soviet era is the falling apart of the standardization of Russian. So when you have different language groups becoming nationally prominent in certain areas, mm, it's not always, peace is not always the result.
true.
It creates tensions, it creates stresses.
Just so the audience understands, Russia's home to 180 different ethnic groups
Yeah.
and
Key
races. So, okay,
nationalities.
300 may be a little exaggeration in Dagestan, but there's almost 100 of them.
Yeah.
It just mixed area. But Russians, and that by Russian Slavs, Rus, which I include Ukraine, what today is called Ukrainians and Belarus, are 83% of the population. And then you have the other 18% of the population, everybody else. So the Tartars or Volga Bulgars are about 1.5, 2% of the population. Chechens are about 1% of the population, and then the remaining is
Well,
over
the
100 and
remaining are
something other
quite
groups.
large, like Chukcha, the northern peoples, in the Russian Far East.
But
You
there aren't
know,
that many Chukcha. There's a huge territory, but they're not really
yeah, they're
that many
very
of
smart. They all come to Moscow. It's nice and
them.
warm.
You know, by the way, the Chukcha are the only ethnic group that were never defeated by the Russian army.
Mm,
True, they were far away, so there was never large contingents of the Russian
mm,
army. They actually defeated the Russian army in a guerrilla type and some pitched battles. They're like
mm.
Eskimo Vikings, and they were
Yeah.
raiding all the other local peoples who were now part of the Russian Empire. So the empire had to send an army to put them down, and the
Well,
army was like 500.
it stretched into Alaska and
Oh yeah,
Northern
yeah.
California and Oregon. You know,
So the the force that they sent was something like 500, 600 guys plus some of the locals, and they got defeated. And eventually they just signed a peace agreement. You're part of the empire. We're going to leave you alone. Just look, just don't raid anybody. We'll, we'll help you. I just stop raiding and murdering everybody else.
well, that's not asking for much. You know, I think that made everybody happy at the time.
You know, because they're the butt of all of like many Russian jokes. Like Poles are the butt of American jokes in the Northeast. The Chukchi are the butt of a lot of Russian jokes, and they're primitive, all that. But if you read their history, they're actually pretty badass.
Yeah, and also it's mostly to do with pronunciation.
Hmm.
You know, when you have a Chukcha who speaks Russian and you're Russian, you're listening to it, you begin to smile. And it's something like a Russian listening to Ukrainian being spoken. You understand what's being said, but you can't believe well, the acrobatics it takes to come up with the words. But
That
that's
makes
what
sense.
it is. You know, it is what it is,
You're
and you
absolutely
got to
right.
respect it. Yeah.
Modern Ukrainian, which is a hodgepodge language. The Kiev regime hates me anyway, so I might as well just keep talking. Uh, it's really you're absolutely right because technical terms and things like that were never part of Ukrainian. Ukrainian was more of a country language, countryside language. Uh,
Agricultural based.
right. And now they're trying to make up words for technical terms. And yeah, you're right. It's insane to listen to what they're doing. Uh, so,
Well, there you have it.
so after South Africa, how long did you spend in South Africa?
Yeah, about 3 years.
You didn't go native.
No, no, no. Look. It was a very focused job that I was doing, and because I had an American passport, and because South Africa was sanctioned every which way to center, and I'm an apolitical person. I really don't care about politics. I want the only diplomacy in the world that means anything is business,
True,
is
true enough.
free and open trade. And as an American who believes in the Constitution, I happen to have a soft spot in my heart for free and unencumbered, unrestricted, unsanctioned trade. That to me is what my definition of America should be. Well, so there I was, keeping the flag up, in my opinion, and doing my thing there in South Africa. uh, After South Africa, I spent about a year and a half in Bermuda, where I was vice president of Falconbridge, Canadian group, nickel mining and platinum group. So then I maintained contacts and contracts with South Africa, with the Soviet Union, and with Canada.
So wait a second. You were vice president in a Canadian mining company
In
sitting
Bermuda.
in Bermuda.
Yes, yeah. That's the way it works.
How did that come about? I mean, that's a
Uh,
great,
so
great setup. I mean, but
well, it all has to do with taxes.
Okay.
Yeah. And other restrictive measures. It's Bermuda, for all intents and purposes, besides being the headquarters of most multinational insurance companies.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, they're all there.
Huh.
Somewhere there, the roots are there. Their deep roots are there. No, so it was an inconvenient place in terms of physical to be physically in Bermuda because you're working. You're not hanging
Right.
around pink sand beaches,
Yeah,
right,
you're
or
right.
playing too much golf. But it was a good magnet because there were certain buyers of the platinum metals, notably Japan, etc., who love the idea of golf in some tropical paradise. So they all came to visit and signed the contracts. So
And you had to play golf and drink Mai Tais with them to
oh yeah, but most of the time I begged off. I said, "Look, uh, I got to work. It's the sunlight is good for golf, bad for me, but I'll join you for the Mai Tais later." That was the important thing.
so I'll take it that those years were not bad years.
No, no, not at all. And then things got the precious metals business became very standardized, and the more people got involved in it, the tighter the margins. And you really had to be a multinational bank to make any money at it because we're talking about tiny, tiny,
Hmm.
tiny margins. So I got out while the getting was good and got involved in high technology investments uh, with Israel, with Russia. It was just coming into perestroika, and because I had a good connection in Israel with high technology institutes like the Ben Gurion University in the Negev, etc., which had mostly a lot of Russian scientists who came over. That also had the blowback that it gave me good contacts in Russia. And to the point where, despite the fact that I'm not a technologist or a scientist, I was nominated by, it was then at the end of the Gorbachev regime, was the first foreigner ever nominated to the Presidium of the Academy of Technological Sciences of the Russian Federation.
Cool.
So I did that for a while.
Very
No, and then
good.
onward and up and downward. It's like the roller coaster ride here since then.
Oh yeah, yeah. It definitely is. So how when did you finally settle in Russia?
No, full time 1991.
1980. So right when everything was
Yeah,
the
the
real
interest.
roller coaster was starting.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been riding the roller coaster since then.
And how do you see the economy now for those? Well, I'm assuming most of the people listening aren't believing most of the crap that they're being told by the Western
Yeah,
media.
look, when the first sanctions hit, uh, 2014, 2015, it was like, okay, it's a mosquito bite. But then they kept ratcheting it up. And here we are today. It's the never in the history of planet Earth has any country been as sanctioned, as completely sanctioned as Russia. And yeah, it suffered, but that was the intent to make it suffer. But the actual result is that if we look around today, the bulk of trade is now without the US dollar. Right? It's happening in countries that are not the G7, which happen to be the majority.
Yep.
And as we see now, look, the blowback on all of this restrictive trade practices and sanctioning is only playing into Russia's worldview. Uh, we hear a lot about multipolarity and unipolar, etc. And when it's unipolar, it's American and American hegemony. Well, that's the truth. It is the American hegemon. And that doesn't really presuppose free trade for anybody.
Yep.
And if you don't trade in the US dollar, you're not going to trade. Well, despite intentions, that's what's happening. trade is now outside of the U.S. dollar. It's increasingly month by month.
You know,
And
if you look at it historically, because I mean, many people don't understand this, but there have been a lot of different reserve currencies in the world
oh yeah,
over time, and no reserve currency lasts more than about 100 years max.
yeah.
And
Well, the
it's
British
usually,
pound was the stellar one at the height of empire.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Russian ruble was gold.
But it still wasn't a reserve currency per se. The
No, but
Netherlands, the Netherlands were a reserve
Netherlands,
currency. Spain was a reserve currency. I think France was a reserve currency at the time. And what happens in all of these is they grow as an economic empire, which makes them very uncompetitive
mhm.
because, as Spain said, everybody can manufacture what they want. Spain has the silver and we don't care. Yeah, well, that kind of didn't work out for a long after a while.
Something runs out after a while.
Absolutely. And the US is a prime modern example. US industry is basically dead. I mean, there is industry there, but there's no full life cycle industry at all in the US. You
It's
cut
largely
out
it's a service economy, but
e-
you need feedstock to serve,
exactly.
and you don't have that.
And it's the industry, by the way, that pays the best jobs for the common man. Flat out, if you look at the common man's job, I'm not talking about high-end engineers. Definitely not talking about directors and all that. But if you look at the average guy in the street, the best job he can get is in manufacturing, as far as
Yeah,
pay goes. It's not in service. Service is slave wage for the most part.
yeah.
So,
Unless you're in California and decide to work for McDonald's.
yeah, but in California, you still have to pay California taxes, and then you have to buy things in
There's
California.
always the other side. Yeah, there's two sides of every coin.
It's like what I hear from Russians. Yeah, if I could earn America's salary, which you'd be living in
Or
America, paying American prices,
pay
you'd still
taxes,
be
yeah,
poor.
and price. Yeah.
It
No,
would
that's
be-
I encounter that all the time. Especially, there was an era here where American soaps were all the rage, and all these. I was running AIG here, and I had about 350 agents working for me, all women. Well, 90% women, and they were enamored with Santa Barbara, California, and everyone drives a Ferrari and wears spiked heels on the tennis court. Whatever their fantasy is. And I was saying, girls, you're
It
being
doesn't work
fed
that
up,
way.
you know.
Yeah,
But you're not gonna, and I felt like a party pooper, like, wow, screwing with their dreams,
yeah,
no. But the reality is very different.
When we moved back, we would tell people about real life in the U.S., but then I stopped. I mean, I still do some. People ask, but I get asked all the time, "Hey, can you talk to my sister? She wants to, she's dreaming about America, whatever." Some other people. I tell them, no, I won't, because they're all
Yeah,
suffering
they
from a
should go.
mental defect called or a mental disorder called the American dream, and you can't tell them anything.
Well, no, and this is all the more reason for them to go themselves.
Oh yeah,
Because you can't give up on your dreams, right? Nothing happens without them. So go try. It might work out for her, you never
yeah,
know.
absolutely.
But
You
but
look
the
at some
thing is,
people.
is that it's a very heavy, Hollywood, besides being and the entertainment capital of America, is the dream maker for the world.
Yep,
It's a huge marketing tool.
it is. It is.
And many people all over the planet swallow it hook, line, and sinker, really without thinking it through.
Yep.
And I've seen the effects here.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I remember when I was living in South Africa, uh, the country came to a standstill when Dynasty was on.
Oh yeah.
It came to a standstill, black and white. That's it. You know?
Yeah.
And
Insanity. Yeah. You think back on that and it's just, God bless it. How could they go? But Dynasty was a big hit back in its day. I never watched it. As a kid, I couldn't stand all that. I want something to go boom and you know who I watched? I watched Christ, now I can't remember the name. It was about a family of cowboys on their land.
Oh yeah,
Big
yeah, yeah.
Bob
Bonanza,
was one of them.
Bonanza.
Bonanza, that's it. Bonanza.
Huh,
I was actually at the Bonanza set once. I was about
uh,
14 or 15 with my parents on vacation in Nevada. And the set it was, well, I don't know how if it's still there, but it was there then. And it was the whole set. Yeah. And then you find, you look at most of the houses just the front. There's nothing behind them, right? Just the
what they like
facade.
to call Potemkin villages.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it was. But it was interesting. The actual Bonanza house was off on the side. You had to go to it, and it was a full-fledged house on the first floor. But there's no second floor. Second floor was set on a sound stage.
Yeah, but it gave birth to a whole family of similar shows that sanctified the family.
Yeah,
The American family, the extended family relations. Same like Dynasty or Dysentery or whatever one wants to call it. A lot of these shows that are a little bit, they're ideal, they're nice. It's a great idea,
yeah,
a bit
absolutely.
removed from reality.
Well, television heavily influences society. No
Oh
matter
yeah,
what people say, oh, it doesn't influence. Bullcrap.
no,
Yeah, of
it
course it does.
sets the dream. It sets the dream.
And if your dream is, and that's what I say in Russia, because the government and the church and everybody wants good families,
Mm,
well, okay, fine, and I'm all for that. I believe in big families,
mm.
but if you want to push that, take the crap off the television with these women's dramas where the wife leaves or the husband leaves, all this. Show programs about families. It's a
Yeah.
happy family or whatever, big families. That's how you do it, not this crap that copy of the American television. The
And look,
melodramas.
Stas, things happen. Thing is that in this area of entertainment, America does take the lead
Oh yeah, yeah.
until it doesn't. One bright, beautiful day. No one knows when that inflection point is. For instance, there used to be where news was actually presented as news.
And
Now
opinions.
it's entertainment.
Yeah,
If there
yeah.
isn't a scandal, if there isn't a bunch of people on the sound stage laughing, at things that are totally irrelevant and not exactly humorous, and that is news. That's opinion.
And
Eventually, it'll come back to news.
speaking of news,
Pendulum swings from
did you watch
extreme to
the
extreme.
did you watch the debate? I can't get
Of
my two
course,
hours
I think
back.
the whole planet did. But what can you say that hasn't been said? I mean, what you see is what you see.
Oh
Look,
yeah.
again, I have to say I am apolitical. I don't think that either of the two. I mean, we have a country of 340 million people. Can only come up with two candidates for the office of CEO of the country.
And those two candidates
Just two candidates, both that are sort of long in the tooth.
long in the tooth.
There's got to be, I think that's in itself indicative of some sort of a malaise.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And actually, I mean, who is running the country?
Who the hell knows?
And that's what's frightening.
Yeah, that's
It really is frightening.
who do you negotiate with? I mean, really, you negotiate with a zombie that can't remember his name half the time unless he's doped up on coke and amphetamines,
Mm.
or are you negotiating with one of his helpers who may be the guy making decisions, or maybe the assistant of the guy making decisions? Well, hell, who knows? I mean, really, who do you
Yeah,
negotiate with?
this is really a key issue, and I think every American ought to take a very sober look at where the country is heading and who is supposedly leading it.
Yeah,
Mm.
Americans actually took a
But
sober
that's easy
look.
to say.
Paul,
And there you have it.
Yeah. If most Americans took a sober look, they'd either be running for the hills and immigrating or rising up in open revolt by now.
Well,
I mean, look, we're almost out of time.
okay.
And I'm calling you back because we've got a lot more to talk about. And most of your interviews
Okay.
are in Russian, not in English. So I'm giving you a chance to remember the English language.
Thank you. Actually, I found myself stumbling. I'm thinking, because usually I think in English all the time, all my thoughts, and I'm translating into Russian. But now I've caught myself that sometimes I'm thinking Russian. Yeah. All right, my friend. Thank you very much for inviting me on. All right.
Thank you for being here, Paul. It
And
was